I have always known I wanted to be a mom. So when I met Grant, it was upsetting to hear he didn't want children. I still remember us looking at each other awkwardly for the rest of our date. We had been dating about a month, and it was apparent to everyone, including me, that we were going to get married. However, Grant not wanting children was a deal breaker for me. 2 days later, he called me and told me that he hadn't stopped thinking about our conversation. He told me he couldn't see a future without me, and that if having children meant we could be together, then he wanted them too. Grant and I are planners to the extreme. Around the time that we met, he was in the process of buying a house. It ended up being the first house we lived in together, and while it was great for a couple starting out, we knew it wouldn't be big enough for us to start a family. We had our plan: get married, renovate our current house, buy a bigger house, and then start our family. So after we got married, we spent the next year completing renovations. Near the end of the renovations, we agreed the timing was right to start our family. This was the beginning of a 3-year period of heartbreak after heartbreak. For the first few months, I shrugged it off every time I realized that I wasn't pregnant. I tried to act as if it were not a big deal, because I knew that stress could affect the possibilities for the next month. I tried to look happy and not jealous as friend after friend told me they were going to have a baby. After the first 6 months, I started reading books and articles, and it seemed everyone's advice for couples our age was to wait 1 year before going to a doctor. So I became more diligent, taking my temperature every morning and tracking my ovulation. When that still didn't work, Grant and I agreed to see a fertility doctor. Based on everything we read, it seemed easier to run tests on Grant first, so we did. We both assumed it was an issue with me, so we were quite shocked when the doctor informed us that it was an issue with Grant. He suggested Grant be put on a fertility drug to try to increase our chances of getting pregnant. We followed the advice, but we were met with the same disappointment each month when we realized we still weren't pregnant. The doctor then suggested I get tested too because he wasn't sure why this wasn't solving the problem. I was scheduled for an HSG test. Luckily, I was really busy at work and didn't look online to see what this meant. I probably would have backed out if I had. The pain from this test was so intense that I almost passed out in the doctor's office. I still remember crying to my mom on the phone, heading home afterward instead of to work where I had planned to go, questioning how I would ever have a baby if I couldn't even take the pain of this test. Then the other line started ringing, and it was the nurse, who informed me that the test showed I had something called a bicornuate uterus. She said while this didn't prevent me from getting pregnant, it significantly increased my risks of having a miscarriage if I did. I was devastated. I drove myself home, pulled the covers over my head, and sobbed my eyes out in bed for several hours until Grant came home. We decided to go back to the doctor and come up with a new plan. The doctor let us know that after retesting Grant, the fertility drug had actually had the opposite effect that he had hoped. He recommended that we try IVF, and that we both go on fertility drugs to increase our chances before it was too late. Neither of us was very excited by the idea of being on the fertility drugs at the same time, and theoretical conversations we'd had of worst-case scenarios became a reality, crashing down on us. We needed to decide how we wanted to move forward with starting our family. We had previously discussed adoption as an option, but more in the, if we have more than one baby, it might be nicer to adopt way. We talked for hours. We ruled out surrogacy, finding a sperm donor, and IVF as options for us. I cried more deeply than I have ever cried in my life during these conversations. I felt like part of my heart was dying. But by the end of the last discussion, we had our plan. We knew we wanted to move forward with adoption to create the family that we both so desperately wanted. In some ways, I think we were lucky that our infertility journey took so long. During the adoption process, we kept being told that in order to successfully adopt, it was important that we fully mourn the loss of our biological